Hello and a very warm welcome to this training session brought to you as part of the Google News Initiative, the Digital Growth Program. My name is Seamus, your coach today. Hopefully you're all settled in, ready to get our teeth into our topic today. As you can see there on the screen, data and ads, two words that go perfectly well together, hand in glove, very important as part of this training program. Before we start today, actually, just before we move on from that main slide, just in case this is your first session on the Google News Initiative, it's worth pointing out what we're actually doing here. The goal of this training is to really take an in-depth look at the methods that newspapers, magazines, media organizations are using to successfully become online publishers. And that's the key word there, isn't it? Successfully. Every lesson covers a different element that any news organization must take notice of, from things to be done before the launch, even if you've already launched your operation, maybe refining operations afterwards, shaping the value proposition, for example, the pricing, the acquisition, and the churn. That's another key word there as well. Every lesson we break down into three key topics. So what? That's one of the questions. So what? What's this all about? Why is it so important? We have a focus area, in fact, three focus areas that we like to drill down into. And then we ask, what now? Looking forward to the future, options that you can use in the future. So the aim is to give clear, actionable instructions to you to help you and your news publication organization become a commercial success online. That is the aim anyway. Before we start, let's just take a look at where this actually fits into the suite of lessons offered as part of the Google News Initiative. As you can see there, data and ads falling under the overall category of advertising revenue. Before this, data management. After this, in fact, later on this month, reader revenue as well. And you can see there after data and ads, we have programmatic strategy, which is a session which we're going to be doing in an hour or so. So hopefully you'll be hanging around for that as well. To really get our heads around this topic, very important topic, data and ads, advertising revenue as a whole. So right up front, we like to say that we want you to get the most out of this training. Goes without saying, but it's worth pointing something out here. We want to show you the variety of options available to you. However, it's really important for us to say right up front that these are just options. And of course, as you all know, the world of digital publishing online, complex. Each and every business has different challenges, different needs, a different audience, and really different types of resources available. So we totally understand that. We're going to show you case studies, actions, further resources that you could use. All of these really just suggestions though. So whatever action, whatever next steps you decide to take as an organization, that's going to be different based on your needs, experience, and aims. So that's very important to point that out right up front. Why this matters, that's one of the important questions as well as we start this session. We all know that ads have long been a key revenue driver for publishers. A relationship with data will be a key asset in a successful ad strategy. In the past, using ads to drive revenue figures, really relatively a simple solution for most organizations. But as we all know, with the digital transformation, changes in relation to data means that many publishers are having to rethink their advertising strategy and as a result really get closer than ever to the data. We shouldn't be afraid of data. It can be great for us looking at those insights, looking at how we can use that to be more successful in the future. So just looking at our focus areas today, we have three of those. So as we say, the relationship between data and ads, and as part of this, we'll be talking about third-party cookies. A lot of us will know a lot about that. It's in the news a lot, third-party cookies. We'll drill down into that. Second focus area, contextual targeting, context. A lot of people say it's all about context when it comes to advertising. We'll drill down into that as well. What might replace third-party cookies, which of course we know they're not going to be around forever. They're being phased out, so we'll look at that. And then the third focus area there, first-party data. That's also important. We're going to look at the definitions of that as well, just to remind ourselves how we can use that in the future as well. So the relationship between data and ads, those two words I think really now going, as I say, hand in glove, very, very important. And we can see there on the screen, this figure here, audience, publisher, the advertiser. Almost looks like a love triangle, doesn't it? When we see it there on the screen like that. Hopefully though, it's a mutually beneficial relationship between the audience, the publisher, and the advertiser. So we have the advertiser, of course, wanting to reach a certain audience, one that connects with their brand or products. A publisher may have that certain audience on its site, reading its content already. So we think that things are going well. The publisher, though, doesn't know that for sure, that it does have the right audience. It has an audience, but is it the specific one that the advertiser is looking for? The audience that's going to work well for the advertiser. Well, that's where third-party cookies have come in. Of course, these make it possible to see more about what interests our readers have, where they've been before, their profile, even who they are in some circumstances. So just to summarize, to obtain more detail on the visitors, a publisher actually might allow advertisers to use third-party cookies to find out more about what we talked about there. Sometimes when we look forward, it can actually be quite nice to take a look back into the past, just to look for some of those keywords, some of those key concepts that we had right at the very beginning, back in the 40s and the 50s. I don't know when advertising really took off and we started to look at advertising for revenue, for media, and what have you. So before third-party cookies, all that advertisers had to go on when choosing where to buy ad space was context. So, of course, brands choosing where to buy ad space through what we call the lens of context. For example, a gardening retailer is simply going to choose to display its ads on sites read by people most likely to buy gardening products, such as Home and Garden, for example, a magazine there with an online presence. So that's just one example there. Third-party cookies, I think we can say, effectively created the digital advertising world as we know it. This piece of information, of course, sent from a website and stored in a user's browser. I always love to actually drill down into the definitions here, because it's amazing when you do conferences and roundtables and you ask people in advertising and publishing to give us the definition of first-party cookies, third-party cookies. For me, and hopefully this rings true for you, first-party cookies, this is baked by the website. I like to keep this analogy of the cookie and crumbs and what have you. So this is the cookie baked by the website that you visit, given to you into your browser, into your computer, so the website owner can collect first-party data. So this can include language preferences, automated filling in of forms, etc., your activity on their website, so that you're remembered if you return to that website. Your presence, in effect, spotted by the crumbs that you leave. And then third-party cookies baked and given to you not by the owner of the website you're visiting, but by a third party, such as an advertiser through an advertiser's server, for example, recording preferences, much like the first-party cookies, behavior, activity, but really totally online, so even across other websites, enabling the advertiser to use that profile to target the user with personalized adverts. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? We know that, of course. The search for a piano once that I made, that I'm going to have piano adverts on many of the sites that I visit over a week or even more. So really good just to get those definitions talked about up front, just to make sure that we're on the same page when it comes to that. So the data gathered by cookies, as we say, there's a lot of data actually, and it's going to be far too much to trawl through for ad buyers. I think that goes without saying. And this was solved by automation through what we know now as programmatic ads. This is really the birth of programmatic. So these cookies providing a chance for others to gain important information about the user, their history, their interests, etc. However, the task of media buying on this scale would be very difficult indeed. So much data coming through, if not near impossible actually to buy that at the scale. So this was the challenge solved by programmatic, of course, a simple way to automate ad buying and bidding. It all but achieved the advertising holy grail. People talked about this one-to-one relationship. And you can see how beneficial third-party cookies really have been for both the advertiser and the publisher, creating premium products, for example. Programmatic buying, not just efficient, but many saying that really it's leading to more sophisticated, to relevant campaigns. So, but of course, as we all know, this changing landscape, Chrome, set to phase out support for third-party cookies over the next couple of years. Publishers and advertisers, we know this is going to be a challenging time. This was back in January 2020. As you'll know, maybe don't need to point this out, but worthwhile, Google announcing its plan to phase out support for third-party cookies in the browser. Within 2 years, you've probably seen those reports of this may be extended as well a further year, but over the next couple of years anyway. So the phasing out, Chrome joining other browsers such as Safari and Firefox in blocking third-party cookies. So the reason why this made such a commotion in the advertising and the publishing industry, of course, because Chrome is the most popular web browser used by more than 60% of users worldwide. So the prediction of the death of third-party cookies long been floated due to the explosion in mobile web browsing, the inherent difficulties with tracking users across devices, leaving cookies, inefficient at building a full picture of a user. So couple this, of course, with this awakening among users around the value of their own private data, the demand for privacy legislation in many areas of the world as well, and the new privacy-focused world emerging right in front of our eyes. Really, it shouldn't come as a surprise that this was going to be debated tweet for the future. And as I say, it really does mean that publishers and advertisers as well, it's really going to be a challenge. So let's look at the options that we may have, the alternatives, at least two of them for third-party cookies for the future. If we know that third-party cookies are on the way out, what does the industry have instead to use? These are two of the options, as you can see there. Contextual targeting. So we go back to that initial word, context, very important, even before the digital age. And then first-party data. And we're going to take a look at both of these in turn. So contextual targeting, and difficult to get our teeth around that, contextual targeting. It's going to be a phrase that we're going to hear a lot more about, I'm sure, in the months and the years to come. So selling ads, as we say, based upon the content of a page. And this is because advertisers won't be able to target individual users by using those third-party cookies. An easy prediction for many of us is going to be the revival, if you like, the renaissance of contextual advertising campaigns. Maybe we'll look back into the 20s and the 30s to get some of those ideas. But this maybe actually could be the only way to target user interests at the scale that we're going to need, at the scale we're used to now that the digital age is already upon us. So contextual ads based on content that the user is looking at right now, instead of on their browser history or their profiles when it comes to behavior. So it's supposed to be more interesting for users. They'll see ads really that match with the theme of the website pages that they're actually visiting in real time. So for instance, a fashion brand might choose to be seen on Vogue magazine's site, just one example, but a company selling financial services, for example, may have better with a website like Forbes, for example. You'll have your own examples for that. So contextual ads are really a chance to enhance content as well. If contextual ads always relate to the content that a reader is looking at in real time, this actually could be better for the user experience. We often talk about that a lot, very important now, the user experience, and also for the advertiser, because they want to be happy as well to make sure that their ads are going to the right people. So potentially a great opportunity to enhance your content as well in this mix of overall solutions. For example, if you're a sports publisher writing an article about football, you already have a great understanding of your audience and why they're there on your site looking at your content. And you could easily argue that an ad to do with football memorabilia, for example, sports equipment, or even related to the team the article is talking about, would actually enhance the experience as opposed to the unrelated thing they were searching about yesterday. Me with my search for a piano, for example, and then I'm on a sports website, and what's that got to do with looking to buy a piano? So that's just one of the examples there. And you can see the appeal now for advertisers and wanting to feature in some of this curated content, this ad experience. This is also really, I think most of us agree, going to accelerate this shift in focus towards metrics, particularly engagement metrics. So we're talking here about quality engagement metrics. Yeah, we do say quality more important than quantity in many, many areas in life. Well, with metrics as well, we're looking for engagement metrics instead of just page views, which we would say would be the quantity side of things. So engagement metrics really helping publishers understand how much value readers are finding in their content. So each reader's time is valuable, of course, and engagement is how publishers are going to measure the value of how they're engaging with their readers. So which specific engagement metrics are deemed essential is going to vary. It's going to be different from publication to publication. Maybe you already have an idea of this for yourselves. But some of the most common engagement metrics for publishers to measure include comments, for example, left behind by users, social shares, whether it's been shared on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and what have you. Recirculation, how many people are actually sharing this content. The time people are staying on the page, the watch time, the duration there, pages per session. And those things, rather than just the simple page views, unique visitors, top exit pages, for example. And you can see there the graph drills down a little bit further into some of what we say are these new metrics of success that we're talking about. It's always good to take a look at a case study when we're doing these lessons, just to see what other people are doing. And let's just take a look here at Rappler. This is an online news website based in Manila in the Philippines, also publishes in English. Actually, among the first news websites in the Philippines to make extensive use of online media, video and audio, along with the text and the pictures. So an opportunity to position data really as an integral part of achieving its strategic objectives that they sat down, they worked that out together. And really, we can see there on the screen there, impressive results so far. This is Rappler, a 20% increase in average monthly readers year over year. And you can also see there an 8% increase in the number of articles read per site visit. So Rappler deciding actually to grow its research and data teams in order to improve the company's overall understanding of their audience's news consumption habits. So always good to get some of those examples there. They can be role models for many of us as we try to move towards this digital transition, move towards online. So let's now drill down into first-party data. One of the parties there in our love triangle, if contextual targeting was one option for replacing third-party cookies, well, here's another first-party data. And it's amazing how cookies can be great when you're wanting to give something to somebody that you love. For now, it looks like publishers could do a lot worse than try to obtain top-notch, first-class, first-party data from their customers. Ad networks really working on solutions to replace third-party cookies as we speak. Many of you may know this, but it really remains an unknown to some extent. It seems inevitable, though, that first-party data is going to become even more crucial than it is now. Partnerships also between publishers and advertisers, working out what's important, this closer collaboration and working together. So once those third-party cookies are gone, we're going to need to revert back to creating those relationships with customers, love triangles, if you like, listening to them, talking to them. We're going to need to strategize, if that's a word that I can use, and find a way of joining the overall conversation with the audience rather than just focusing on the number of page views. And you know, for a lot of us, that's been the easy option, just the 3 metrics there that we can look at. But first-party data really does provide an opportunity to create much stronger ties with customers and prospects. So developing first-party data will present its own challenges. Let's look at what might be involved. And actually, just as a little note, I forgot to mention right up front that we're also joined by the amazing Alistair, who's in the forum there in the chat if you wanted to pose any questions as we go through this content. There's so much to unpack here. You know, we're going through this at quite a pace, and there may be some phrases or keywords that you're not sure about. But, you know, if you have any issues, any questions, we will answer questions towards the end of the session. But if you do have anything that you wanted to ask, don't hesitate to put that into the chat for Alistair. He may be able to reply straight away. Otherwise, we'll come to some questions at the end. I know that we're going through this. It brings up a lot. We're unpacking a lot. These are fast changing times. Really, it's a full evolution we're in the middle of. Nobody has, all of the solutions, but if we can start to, put our thinking caps on when it comes to all of this, then I think the better for all of us. So reader data, developing first-party data, really presenting its own challenges, as I say, and develop your own first-party data. Someone says that to you, well, it's easier said than done. What is it and how might you get that? Well, first-party data, of course, information that you're collecting from your customers, the visitors to your site, your app users, for example, during their interactions with your products and services. So to be considered first-party data, and based on that definition we went through at the very beginning, information must be collected from your own sites, your apps, physical shops even, people going into your shops, into your offices, or in other situations where people are directly interacting with you or your products and services. So that may be a conference, that may be at some kind of meeting where you're promoting your organization, your publication, and what have you. So this really comes back to direct engagement with your readers. That's key, the word engagement there. For example, you could invite them to subscribe to an email newsletter. Much more direct a relationship than just tracking while they browse a website. Or you could find a way of introducing a user login requirement, for example. That's also first-party data, allowing you to track that user in a unique and a highly personalized way. So just some of the examples there. Single view of the user, examples of some of the basic first-party data gleaned from your readers. Perhaps you can just have a look at this, and ways to ask for that information explicitly. So as you say, single view of the user, what's first-party data? Some of the examples there you can see: name, email, we'll talk a bit about that in a moment, mobile number, demographics, etc. I think a lot of those quite obvious for most of us. So how do we get that? As we say, subscribe to a newsletter, for example, download this report. You may have some kind of link on your website, download this. People put in an email address, further information. Take a survey, for example. That's often very useful now. On many sites that I visit, they ask me to take part in a survey. That's one way of getting getting first-party data, can be very valuable. Lots of options there. Those are just a few of them. Just on that question about email, I know there's a lot of debate about the the gathering of emails. A lot of debate about that. Some people saying they're not sure that's really going to be the way forward in the future. Maybe for some, maybe not for others. But email subscriptions and authenticated audiences. So an email address can be used as a viable alternative to cookies because by the very nature of email addresses, they're always unique to one specific user. So that email address can then be hashed, that's the word we use, or anonymized, to actually give it a unique ID that can then be used to link together a series of first-party data. So just a side note on that. Of course, it's a lot more complex than that, but that's just a touch on that. I know that there's a lot of debate about that in some circles. So a lot of the recommendations we're hearing at the moment, really, it's to invest in a data management platform known as a DMP. And you've probably already heard about this. We're hearing a lot about this now. Really the collecting, the storing, the sorting out of customer data. And to get started building up customer data, a lot of experts say that you're really likely to need a data management platform if you don't already have one. These come in many different forms, small or big. As we say, used to collect, to sort, and to store the information. A DMP on its own, essentially, we can view it as a software file cabinet with information on those users, those very important users, those visitors. Connecting it also to a demand-side platform or a DSP, that's going to be mostly for advertisers. So you'll do a Google search on that demand-side platform. You get a definition on that. Take a note of that, though. It's going to be used a lot in the future. Also, a supply-side platform. So that's on the publisher side. That's known as an SSP. And then the options to reconnect the advertiser with the reader where back in business. If you're already working with a third-party DMP, that DMP can still create first-party segments for you and have them uploaded into Ad Manager, for example. So once you've worked with a third party to push the provided segments into Ad Manager, those segments will then be available for targeting, forecasting, reporting, just like any other first-party segment. So just for those who are already on some kind of path towards a DMP, or in fact who already have a DMP. So moving along also, we've heard in the media a lot about the Privacy Sandbox, this Google-backed project for creating what they call a thriving web ecosystem, respectful of users, private by default. Google currently developing this. It's an open source solution. That's the aim is to allow publishers and advertisers to build, sustain ad-supported websites before the phasing out of those third-party cookies. So, of course, the mission here in its current state, many experts saying that you're not going to find concrete solutions for replacing third-party cookies in this privacy sandbox, but really it's going to serve as a forum to collaborate, to share ideas, this overall effort to develop open source web standards. And so we're hearing a lot about that. And we have time now, 2 or 3 years for the phasing out. And so the Privacy Sandbox really there for this online discussion, really to find solutions. That's an ongoing debate, of course, and by all means, feel free to take part in that. I think we're all going to be taking part in that debate at some point on our digital journey. Another case study, it's always good to have this. This is Groupe Figaro in France. So this is a French media conglomerate. They own newspapers, magazines such as Le Figaro, Madame Figaro as well, for the female side of things, TV magazine and so on they have, as well as various titles in Italy and Brazil. So here it was very important for them to use a DMP to understand visitors and their purchase intentions. And as you can see there, already success, nearly 15% of visitors using this group, this media group, actually the sites of that group for purchases, from luxury goods to high-tech gadgets, home improvement articles, for example. But the writers, the reporters in the group struggling actually to define visitors' purchase interests. And that's where, a lot of this collaboration goes on now between the commercial side and the editorial side. So either reviewing products, for example, readers are not interested in, or failing to review products that would generate a lot of interest. Those were some of the downsides. And so the solution here for the group Figaro was to gather insights from the DMP about the visitor's purchase intentions, to refine the data, import and qualify that data in an editorial CMS. And that's something you may have already heard of, a content management system. Of course, this is where we're going to edit, publish, and to store our online content. So allowing journalists, reporters to create the content that readers really are looking for within the CMS. Categorize content with product ID, for example, connecting that to merchants. Keeping content up to date, that's also very important. So a question for you as we continue with this session. We've already covered a lot of things here. An overall question: do you have a strategy for collecting first-party data? And as I've been raving on there, unpacking so much, maybe you've been asking yourself, at your organization, what are we doing actually to collect first-party data, if that's going to be important for us as third-party cookies are phased out? One data management platform that you could look at actually is Google Analytics 360. Of course, that's a DMP, as you can see there on the screen. All of its tools are useful for handling first-party data that you're going to want to collect. And actually here, you can actually see a video here, and Alistair may be able to put this a link for this into the forum, into the chat for you there. This is called Getting Started with Google Analytics 360. It's a lesson, if you like. It's a course. It's going to walk you through how you can take advantage of the enterprise level features that you gain from Analytics 360. You'll learn about advanced features such as roll-up reporting. You may be familiar with that term. Custom funnels, unsampled reports, custom tables. You'll also gain that valuable insight into how you can actually benefit from reporting with other tools such as BigQuery, native integrations with the Google Marketing Platform products, Google Ad Manager as well. Throughout the course, Google will provide you with real-world examples, ready to show how you can leverage Analytics 360's features, the integrations to drive that performance you're after, achieve those very important business goals. And if you're new to Google Analytics, you should first complete Google Analytics for Beginners, actually, and Advanced Google Analytics on the Analytics Academy. And hopefully you'll have some of the links there going in there from Alistair, analytics.google.com. That's the place you want to go to just to have further lessons on that, to drill down into some of those things that we can see there on the screen. We wouldn't have time in this lesson to go into all of that, but that could be very interesting for you for the road ahead. Another case study, let's look at KG Media, or Compass Gramedia. This is Indonesia's largest publishing conglomerate. It actually used Google Analytics 360 to get a better grip to understand its audiences before running programmatic guaranteed campaigns and Ad Manager for its clients. And we'll look at the definition of this in just a moment, those guaranteed ads in Ad Manager. Really, KG Media, as you can see there, increasing its CPMs. Of course, they're the cost per 1,000 impressions or views of an advertisement. You'll be familiar with that. Increasing that by 25% using Google Analytics 360. And the goals really were to get those CPMs up in partnerships with airlines, in fact, airline advertisers. They increased airline advertisers' conversions while decreasing the overall cost, and they were displaying relevant personalized ads to Compass readers. And so Google Analytics 360 there, identifying people who were considering airline travel but who hadn't bought tickets yet, They were creating a custom audience segment. They were running a programmatic guarantee campaign, trying to deliver more relevant adverts. And as we can see there, the results looking good. 80% lower cost per flight search for the airline advertiser and well. So it's a global approach. Everybody looking at their results, not just the advertiser, but also the publisher, and also hopefully good for the audience as well. So let's just summarize some of the actions and some of the themes we've been covering here. As I said, we had a lot to get our teeth into. Let me just put my false teeth back in. We had a lot to unpack there, the relationship between data and ads, talking there about third-party cookies. Now we all know the definitions, we're on the same page. Contextual targeting, that's something we want to have on the wall there in front of us in the months and years ahead. And then also first-party data, and also using the tool there, Google Analytics 360, also very important there. So at this point, what we wanted to do was to see if there were any questions from you as we come towards the end of this session. I'm just having a look now into the forum, into the chat, just to see if there were any questions that came up. I have a door or two here in this house that I'm staying in, banging away in the wind. Hopefully that's not disturbing, but if you do hear a bang or two, don't panic. It's just the wind here in Provence in France, banging in the wind. A little bit distracting for me, but let me just have a look at the question we have here. Doesn't having more information mean you get better targeted ads? In that case, why phase out third-party cookies? Yeah, so we've heard that question a lot as part of this overall debate about the phasing out of third-party cookies. And of course, yeah, the overall aim is to have more information, getting better targeted adverts. But I think, you know, a lot of people looking at this, they're really in they're between a rock and a hard place, because we're having to take into account so many things. There are pressures on all sides. And we hear this from many people who work in the sector, that, you know, there are these privacy concerns, but there are also, the other technical aspects and what have you. If you go into the Privacy Sandbox, for example, you can see this debate going on. You can see all of this emerging. Very difficult for us in these lessons to drill down and to go into the rights and wrongs, the pros and cons of all of this. It's an ongoing debate, phased out over the next 2 or 3 years, of course. The total permanent solution hasn't been found yet, in fact. And a lot of these roundtables, conferences that I take part in on this question, people are saying that, you know, this is being looked at. This can change. It's evolving as we speak. Even today, there'll be a new development as we speak. So I think, yeah, that's a question that maybe we could talk about further as part of our roundtable, for example, which we have after our next lesson later on. So just in an hour or so, in about an hour, 20 minutes, we have a roundtable. So you're very welcome to join that, to go into this. Talk about your experience. What are your views on that? What's it going to mean for you? These changes. So interesting question, yeah. Another question there in the forum, is there a reason why privacy is becoming such a big topic? It didn't matter 5 years ago. That also, I think, a great question for the roundtable, if you can hang around for that. As I say, in about an hour, 20 minutes, we have the next lesson is on programmatic advertising strategies. But I think for me, as somebody, who's a journalist, I work in the media, this debate, I think, even started even more than 5 years ago. Internally, at least, I think we're talking about it publicly a lot more now. But privacy concerns, really, it's on the legislative level. It's not just within organizations. I think even a lot of companies had this concern about privacy. Are we able to do that? Are we able to do that? Ethically, is it right? What are some of the red lines we need to adhere to? Some people actually, some organizations were calling out for guidelines. They were calling out for regulation, funnily enough, within the industry, just to make sure that, competitors we're not doing something that they weren't doing to make sure that there was an equal footing, if you like, for all news publishers. But I think you're right. Within the last 5 years, this really has come up as something that we're seeing a lot in the media. The debate is ongoing. We know what's happening in Europe, for example, the European Commission, very tough when it comes to privacy. A lot of states around the world now building this into their legislation. A lot of the audiovisual agencies that monitor news organizations in many countries now making these requirements. And I think that's, one of the reasons why privacy becoming such a big topic, and also just the feedback, I think the return we're getting from users, that's being taken into account. And of course, there are lots of different views on all of this. There's no perfect answer. And I think, I think when you talk to a lot of the people who are driving all of this, some of the major companies, some of the main agencies, government agencies and what have you, they will say that, yeah, there's a lot to discuss and we need to have all points of view. So I think that's why I think it's great there's this at least a phasing out, that it's not an overnight thing, that we have time to look for solutions. So great question there. Those two questions are quite related. Great for the roundtable discussion, as I say, in about an hour or 20 minutes time. So let's just, if those are, I think those were a couple of the questions that we had, Alistair, in the chat. Let's just have another look at where this lesson actually fits as part of the overall suite of lessons that we have with the Google News Initiative. You can see there data and ads. Just take a look at this chart, because if this is your first session, you may look here and think, yeah, actually, I want to be a part of the next session, programmatic strategy. We'll drill down into some of the things we were talking about here. This could be very interesting for you. Sorry about these banging doors. It may be a ghost here in Provence in France, but it's probably more likely the wind. But for the next session, I'm going to have to make sure that I go and put things in front of the doors. You can see there's other sections like reader revenue. Very interesting content there. Reader revenue models, assessing the opportunity, optimizing your user funnel, alternative income streams. And so even, some of those questions we had there on the forum, a lot of that is covered in some of these other sessions: data management, understanding the data, data-driven content, how we deal with people visiting our websites, audience development, how do we build up the audience, creating content for digital, optimizing the digital assets, for example, crafting digital newsletters. We drill down into a lot of this and some of the other sessions. Some of these sessions have already taken place, some are still to come, so do check out on the site where you went to sign up for this session. Some of these other sessions could be useful for you for the business strategy side of things there, you can see. Yeah, so it'd be great to have you along for this journey, and you can continue the journey. As we say, there's a roundtable coming up. This is an open discussion. We'll be, in Vision. You can actually talk to us. We'll have Alistair there as well, who was moderating in the forum. I'll be there. We can help, point you in certain directions. Of course, we don't have all the answers, but we can help you, navigate through this whole area, which, yeah, we totally understand it's complex, but I think, that's one of the things that's been reassuring for me is that, at the moment, at the present time, nobody has all of the answers. And so I think, all of these discussions are very useful indeed. There's also, as part of the Google News Initiative, the Digital Growth Labs. They can be very useful as well for looking at particular case studies, drilling down. If you have a particular business side of things that you want to look at, particularly, you can try to reach out to Google to take part in the labs. It's also very important for us, the feedback from you. So the feedback after these sessions, very important. How Google can evolve when it comes to backing these training sessions, improving the support to you as well. That can also be very important as we continue with this digital journey. So I've got my eye on the clock. I see we have about a minute to go. So at this point, as I say, lots to unpack. We know what it's like. Yeah, there are so many things we need to look at as part of this digital transformation. Hopefully, this has all made sense. As I say, do stay around for the roundtable if that could be useful. This digital transformation, you may be you may not have launched already. You may be just looking around, looking for options, this is a good place to be. You may have already launched, or you may have been in this game for 5 years or more, but you're wanting just to refine things. This is a great place to be to have that discussion. So thank you very much for taking part in this lesson. Hopefully it's been useful. As I say, do stay with us. Join us again for some of the other sessions. It's been great to provide this lesson for you, and we look forward to seeing you again soon, hopefully. Thanks again, and take care.